Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So today I've got a little bit different kind of video. You know I needed to replace the nut on the white Les Paul Studio that I was recently working on. If you didn't know that, go check out my build of two Les Paul Studios. I did a 1987 and a 2006. And if you saw me replace the nut on the 1987, you would have seen me struggling because my files are getting really dull. Well, I invested in a new product, which is this MusicNomad set of nut files, and they're diamond impregnated, and they're just a much better set in general, more options for widths and whatnot. So I'm gonna go ahead and unbox this and show you what I've got. So first of all, the set comes with this hard case, or semi-hard case I should say, and it's zippered. And it's got a little bit of a hanger, so that if you wanted to hang it up on the wall, you could do that. Opening up everything inside, looks like everything comes kind of in a Ziploc sort of bag here. There's a brush and quite a few of these nut files, along with a set of stickers so that you can mark what size files are what. Now the case is slotted so that you can insert your nut files in each position. It looks like it's big enough to hold 16 files plus the brush. So I'm going to get to work taking these things out of the package, applying the labels, and then I'll come back whenever that's all been set up. Okay, so after applying the labels and unboxing and unpackaging each one of these files, putting them in their slots, everything looks really nice in this little case that they give you, and it's really well protected just because of the nature of it being a sort of a semi-hard case. To demonstrate the effectiveness of these files, I'm going to go ahead and file the nut on this 2006 Studio Les Paul. Now, one thing I'll say about this nut installation, I'm not showing you that part because it's not really what the video is about, but it's interesting when you install a nut on a Les Paul because there actually is a channel on a lot of Les Pauls, only really because the peg head overlay sticks up above the wood of the headstock itself. Basically, you have to carve out the finish on the sides of the nut. I'll link to a video that shows a pretty good overview of how that works. But this nut has now been super glued in place. This is a Tusk nut from Graphtec, by the way. I'm now going to put the strings over the nut and then tune to pitch so that I'm measuring accurately what the clearance is at my first fret. So this is what I was using before I got the Nomad Music nut slot files. It's basically a really simple file. It's got teeth on one side and a smooth radius on the other side, so you can set it in the slot while you're filing and measure underneath the file to the first fret, you know, if it's resting on the second fret, and get an idea of how tall your nut height is. It worked well, but the problem is that it's just like a saw blade on this side, and they really got dull over time. So I don't really anticipate that problem with the new diamond impregnated files from Nomad Music. So I've tuned this to pitch, and I'm going to basically detune one of the strings at a time, file the nut slot until I get down to 20 thousandths. If you don't have a good feeler gauge, go ahead and get yourself one. You can find these in the automotive store. There's many other places you can find them. You're going to measure underneath the first fret without the strings depressed or anything. You're trying to get to 20 thousandths. Once you get to 20, and I'm talking about thousandths of an inch, it's possible that you may want to go lower, but I'm going to go to 20 here, and if somebody wanted to adjust this later, they could. So this is a set of 10 to 46s, and I'm going to start with a 50 thousandths file on this big slot here for the low E string. What you want to do when you're slotting these is file downward in the direction of the headstock, and that will allow your string to break over the nut, with the front of the nut being the highest point. Now I'm going to do this. I'll be putting it back on, tuning it back to pitch, checking the clearance, and then repeating that throughout the process. Alright, so I'm just about at 20 thousandths on this low E string, and I'm going to continue this process through all 6 strings. As I do each one, I'm going to detune it and set it to the side. So if I'm doing the A string, I would just detune the A string, set it over to the side, file that slot, and then put it back and tune it back up and check the clearance over the first fret. So that's the basics of the process. It's going to take me a little bit, but what I'll do for you is just try to give you an idea of how long it took me to slot this nut from E to E. I'm not going to include the time that I would spend shaping this nut afterward. I'm just going to talk about the filing times, because I'm telling you, that old set of files that I was using, I really took a very long time to cut these bigger slots, especially the E and the A. I'm already saving myself a ton of time, I can tell. All right, well, I'm all done, and really that only took me about 15 minutes, and I'm telling you, if I had one of those gauges that you could lay across the fretboard and file down to that, it would save me so much time. I don't have one of those. I just detune, file, put the string back in, retune it, and check the clearance, and do that over and over again. These files cut so fast that I actually was able to get these down to somewhere between 16 and 18 thousandths on each slot in record time for me. So I'm really impressed with these. And by the way, when you're choosing a file size for each slot, I always choose just a few thousandths bigger than what I'm filing for. So this is a 10 to 46 set of strings. So for example, on the 46, I used a 50, and on the 36, I ended up using a 42. There wasn't anything smaller than that above 36. Then on the 26, I ended up using a 28. Then on the 17, I ended up using a 20. On the 13, I used a 17, and on the 10, I used a 13. So that just gives you an idea. And that really is just to allow the string some amount of movement so it's not going to hang up in that slot. Now, in summary, these nut files were about $240 for me. They saved me a ton of time, and as they say, time is money. So I think these things allow me to slot a nut in about a third of the time as my really old, dull files. I know that's not a fair comparison, but they're going to save me a lot of money in the long run. I should point out, MusicNomad does nothing to sponsor me. I really think this is a good quality product. It's why I'm mentioning it. I really appreciate when you guys give me likes, when you guys give me comments. I really appreciate the subscriptions. And please check my Amazon links. Those really help me out. Now, these will be on there, and they won't cost you any extra if you use my Amazon link to purchase them. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.